All right, let's get right into it. We're about to break down a set of rules for life that were literally tested on the battlefield. They come from one of the greatest samurai who ever lived, Miyamoto Musashi. And these aren't just, nice little quotes. This is a real practical blueprint for rebuilding your life from absolute zero, forged in the middle of a total disaster.
I mean, this question really hits home, doesn't it? That feeling when the floor just drops out from under you and everything you thought was solid and certain is suddenly gone. It's a horrible feeling, but you know what? It's also the exact starting point where real, lasting change can happen.
So just try to put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're 17, a warrior. You fight in the biggest, most decisive battle in your country's history. And in the span of just 6 hours, your entire world is vaporized. Your army, your social status, your clan, gone. You're not a samurai anymore. You're a wanted man on the run. This was Musashi's new reality.
And this is the fire where his entire philosophy was forged. This wasn't cooked up in some peaceful monastery, you know? This was a survival code created right in the middle of a personal apocalypse. But here's the thing. That brutal collapse wasn't the end for him. It was just the beginning. See, in his culture at that time, there were really two expected paths. You either commit suicide to keep your honor, or you live the rest of your life in shame and hiding. Musashi looked at those two options and said, no. He chose a third, much harder path. He decided to rebuild, using the rubble as his foundation. So how in the world did he do it? How do you even start? Well, it all began with two really powerful, almost counterintuitive choices. These two ideas are the bedrock of his entire system. Okay, rule number one sounds simple, but it is incredibly hard to do. Accept what happened. Now, this is not about giving up or being passive. It's a strategic move. A Harvard study actually found that people who bounce back the fastest from trauma are the ones who accept their new situation the quickest. Why? Because it stops them from pouring precious energy into denial. Think about it like this. Your house is on fire. You can stand there screaming, "Why is my house on fire? This shouldn't be happening!" Or you can accept that it's on fire and immediately ask, okay, what's the way out? Fighting reality traps you in, why me? Acceptance frees up all your mental energy to ask the single most powerful question you can. What now? So, after you accept reality, the next great temptation is to just numb the pain, right? Alcohol, mindless entertainment, anything to escape. But Musashi chose the exact opposite path. Instead of destructive comfort, he chose what he called constructive suffering. He leaned into brutal discipline, knowing that the pain of discipline would forge him into someone way stronger. And that's the key right there. It's not about some grand, one-time heroic act. It's about the little choices, day in and day out. And modern science totally backs this up. Get this. A Stanford study found that when you use pleasure to escape pain, it actually increases your stress hormones. Your brain knows you're just hiding. But discipline, that actually rebuilds your brain. So if you have to suffer either way, you might as well choose the suffering that makes you stronger. So, with the external world handled, Musashi turned his focus inward. The next two rules are all about mastering the one and only thing you ever truly have control over, your own mind. This legendary duel is the perfect illustration of his third rule. Your emotions are your enemy. His opponent, Kojiro, was an amazing swordsman, technically brilliant, but he fought with anger, with impatience. He was a slave to his emotions. Musashi? He was calm, strategic, in complete control. He was the master of his mind. And the result? Musashi won in about 30 seconds. I absolutely love this metaphor. You have to be the pilot. The emotions can be in the back, screaming, panicking, doing whatever they want, but you cannot let them touch the controls. A Harvard study found that a whopping 87% of our biggest life regrets come from decisions we made while we were in a highly emotional state. Musashi used a simple trick, the 10-second rule. When you feel a powerful emotion rising up, just stop. Count to 10. Let the wave crest and pass, then act with a clear head. So after years of this wandering life, Musashi came up against a new enemy, his own mind. He was just ruminating, trapped in a loop of replaying his past failures. And he realized that being obsessed with your own pain is a kind of prison. So he made a radical choice. He forced his mind to look outward. He started studying art, sculpture, philosophy, architecture, anything that was bigger than his own suffering.
And this leads to what you could call the mountain perspective. It's a great way to think about it. When you're down in the valley, your problem is all you can see. It's this huge, insurmountable wall. But as you climb, as you expand your perspective by learning new things, you start to see it for what it is. Just one little feature and a massive, beautiful landscape. And incredibly, a University of Michigan study found that learning new things can literally turn off the suffering circuits in your brain.
Okay, on to the final rule. And this one might be the most surprising of all. Musashi found that his most dangerous and persistent enemy wasn't some rival swordsman. It was envy. And his solution wasn't some soft, sentimental feeling. It was a weapon.
He called it strategic gratitude. He didn't just feel grateful, he used gratitude. He actively trained his brain to focus on what he had, his life, his skills, the air in his lungs, instead of obsessing over what he had lost. This was not about just feeling good. This was about rewiring his brain for peak performance.
And check this out, science proves he was dead right. A University of California study scanned the brains of people after trauma. When they focused on what they'd lost, the fear center of the brain, the amygdala, lit up like crazy. But when they focused on gratitude, the prefrontal cortex, the smart, rational, decision-making part of the brain, took over. It literally makes you smarter and calmer. So, how do you actually do this? Musashi's method was super simple. Be specific. Every day, he'd write down 3 specific things he was grateful for. Not just, I'm grateful for my life. More like, I'm grateful my legs were strong enough to carry me 10 miles today. That specificity trains your brain to hunt for what's working. It flips you from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. And that, my friends, is a massive competitive advantage. But there's one last piece of the puzzle, a kind of hidden, unwritten rule that ties everything we've talked about together. It's the real secret to not just surviving, but actually using a crisis to completely transform yourself. This is the question that changes everything. See, Musashi never tried to get his old life back. He knew that person was gone forever. Instead of looking backward, he looked at the wreckage, at the painful lessons he'd learned, and he asked this. He used the pain as the raw material to build someone entirely new. And that's the ultimate takeaway. Think about it. If that battle had never happened, if his life hadn't fallen apart, he might have just been another samurai who nobody remembers. The absolute worst thing that ever happened to him was the very thing that forced him to become a legend. The crisis wasn't the end. It was the beginning. So that brings it all back to you. Whatever crisis you might be facing, it isn't just a curse, it's a forge. The question is, which one of these powerful, battle-tested rules are you going to put in action? Because just knowing this stuff is fine, but it's not enough. It's time to build what's next.